Good evening, I'm Dr. Martin. This is a bit of a new setup. We're actually in my rental house in Las Vegas. I got a parrot to keep me company and he's a little chatty, so I'm going to apologize. But cheers. It's later in the evening and we'll probably be filming very early in the morning or very late at night because the sun comes through these windows and we always want a whiteboard and I want you to be able to see what's on the whiteboard. Now, I know it's been about a week since I posted anything, and I really wanted to take some time before I posted this to make sure that what I was going to post was number one, actionable, and number two, that I like to have meat on the bone. I really do. And so we're going to try to put some meat on the bone. We're going to follow up with a lecture that I gave that some of you may have seen. It was called Falling in Love with Your Cash-Based Practice. And we did that to probably 250 people online. They were there for a webinar. It's in the iore.com if you would like. Sorry for the chatty bird here. It's a blue Quaker parrot and her name is Luna and she's chatty. This lecture is titled Reality. And the more and more I talk to providers, they are having a very, very difficult time with this because medicine's changing and it's changing very, very fast. The value of services rendered has fallen precipitously. And because the value of service has fallen, the metric of work product required to make that amount of money has gone up dramatically. The perception is that we're all kind of running a rat race and there really is no cheese at the end of the wheel, right? We're going to run through this maze and at the end of the maze, there's supposed to be this great prize, but there's no real prize because reality is that our reimbursed value for leveled service based on CPT codes, ICD-10 codes, surgical care has fallen completely through the floor. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that Medicare has cut reimbursement every year for the past 5 years. The cuts started at 2.5%, they're accelerating to 3%, and they're probably going to continue. Now, the reason I call this reality is most people aren't looking at hard numbers. They're in their practice, they're busy, they're doing what they like, and they feel, all right, because I'm doing surgery, I'm getting paid for my degree of education and the level of care that I've rendered. The fact of the matter is, you're not. You're not getting paid that at all. You're getting paid a fraction of that. Let me explain. I've listed the most common surgeries here on the board. Total hip replacement, total knee replacement, gastric bypass, lumbar epidural, bunionectomy, microdiscectomy, and large joint injection. This is standard reimbursement on the professional side in 2026 through Medicare. $1,050 for a hip replacement, $1,080 for a total knee. Gastric bypass, $1,150. Reimbursed the best out of all of this. Large joint injection, about $55. I thought it was $59, it's now actually about $55. Microdiscectomy, surgical microdiscectomy for neurosurgeons, $680. Bunionectomy, $420. Epidurals, of course, pain doctors were the first to get assailed. I mean, I've been cash for about the last 7 years, largely because reimbursements got drilled so aggressively. What is this next column? This next column is the amount that you actually take home. Now remember, on this $1,000 for a total hip replacement, you're only collecting 80% of that. The reason you're only collecting 80% is 20% coinsurance. I've factored into this net 65% overhead. Now almost everyone knows that if you actually have a surgery center, your net is less than that because surgery center overhead, large orthopedic, large neurosurge, large pain groups have overheads that can exceed 70%. Total hip replacement, $300. That's $100 a month for 3 months. Lumbar epidural, $56. Large joint injection, $15. Microdiscectomy, $190. $80, less than that, $70 a month for 3 months. You're telling me that it's worth it to do a microdiscectomy on a patient and get paid $70 a month for the next 3 months? This is insane. These numbers are insane. And because this is reality, I'm going to give you a bit bigger dose. I went ahead and I tabulated the prospective reimbursement net 5 years from now, when Medicare cuts an additional 3% a year for the next 5 years. Large joint injections, $12. Microdiscectomy, $160. Bunionectomy, $100 for 3 months. You're gonna make $100. $35 a month. Insanity. Gastric bypass, $275. Total hip replacement, $250, right? About $85 a month for 3 months. It's largely untenable. How many hip replacements do you have to do just to make $1,000 on that patient? You can't do enough hip replacements. At $85 a patient for 3 months, the value in medicine is essentially gone. And so what's happening? What's happening is large groups of surgeons are getting gobbled up by venture capital groups. They're getting gobbled up by the hospitals. And what are those venture capital groups and hospitals doing? They're pulling all the patients from outpatient practices, making sure those patients get all of their rendered services at the hospital. See the hospital's primary doctor, see the hospital's endocrinologist, see the hospital's gastroenterologist, see the hospital's cardiologist. So all the procedures, all the labs, all the investigations are done at the hospital because that's where the hospital makes money. What's in it for all of you? Well, to be honest, not a whole hell of a lot, right? If I look at this, this is horrifying. And I'm going to add a column here to the left, all right? And the column here to the left is the average reimbursement to a chiropractor with a nurse practitioner and physician oversight doing a knee injection for a patient with OA or a cartilage-based defect. Using words. Excuse me, I apologize, folks. Getting used to the Texas mold and things. On average, they're using a biologic that's $750 in cost. They're charging patients $3,500. Their net is well over $1,000 per injection. And many integrated chiros are doing those 20 times a week. This is a model that's sustainable. This is a model that will eventually fail you. Now, I gave a lecture on falling in love with your cash-based practice. And the reason I gave that lecture was very simple. One of the single most profitable models in medicine right now is experimental application. Remember, we cannot use any biologic to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease because the FDA is your friend. This whiteboard's getting that for the first time. No human cell and tissue product can be used to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent disease. So we're not talking about that. But what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about trying to build value in our practice, right? And by way of building value in our practice, right, if we want to stay in practice, what do we kind of have to do? We kind of have to be able to afford ourselves. We have to be able to pay the bills. And since bills are going up every single month in some practices, your best office staff wants to get paid better. Your best office staff will leave you for $5 or $10 in another practice. How do we build value? I'm going to walk through a granular process that I would consider using to build a foundation financially for your practice. This doesn't mean that you have to abandon your practice and start doing this tomorrow. It doesn't mean that you need to stop operating. What it does mean is if you are an orthopedic surgeon, you're a gastric surgeon, you're neurosurgeon, plastic surgeon, whatever. And your thought is, hey, I want to start an aesthetics practice because I'm going to make a bunch of money in aesthetics. And I'm going to spend $300,000 on lasers, and I'm going to make all that money back on lasers. I talked to a doctor who went bankrupt because she took out loans over $400,000 for lasers. She couldn't pay him back because she couldn't make any money on the lasers. I call this the Coeur d'Alene protocol, but it doesn't have to be the Coeur d'Alene protocol. It's an IV protocol that can be, it can be Palo Alto, it can be, Dallas, Texas, it can be Sarasota, Florida. It can be, Upper Peninsula, Michigan. It can be downtown Atlanta. It doesn't matter where you do it. The principles are the same. First principle, establish value. Second principle, establish receipts. Third, establish relationship. We're going to simply work with two different biologics. We're going to work with nano air and we're going to work with nanosomes. In this model, there are simply two price points. And this really is not complicated. All right? Those price points, nano air's 50 billion lyophilized exosomes. Nanosomes is 180 billion. It's cryopreserved. All of this is going to be done by IV route of administration, right? And we're not talking about IV push because all of you know that I can't stand IV push. I think it's inglorious. I think it risks Herxheimer response. I can't stand IV push. So please put it in an IV bag. How do I establish value? For nano air, I do two things. First, value, receipts, relationship. Value, if they choose nano air 50 billion, I add one supplement. Complementary. If they use nanosomes, I add 3 supplements, and it's complementary. But I need to establish receipts as well. What am I giving the nano air for? If you're in Miami or you're in downtown LA or you're in Boulder, Colorado, there are a lot of very healthy people who will walk into your practice and they will be like, hey, look, I'll give you whatever because I'm biohacking, or I'm going to give you whatever because I'm a 4-5 pickleball player and I play 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I hit it hard and I need my body to function optimally. They know what they want. They come in knowing what they want. But the majority of the time, most people don't. So you have to establish receipts. And I can't spell. R-E-C-E-I-P-T-S, I believe. So what do? There are some comprehensive labs. One of the ones I like is Function Health. There is another very good, very comprehensive in Marianne, my wife, who's an endocrinologist and singularly brilliant. She told me the name of this literally this afternoon and I forgot. It's been a long day. Function Health has 2 different panels. They have a smaller panel and they have a very comprehensive panel. And I'm going to show you how this plays out. In this nano air paradigm, I will do a smaller panel. In the nanosomes category, I will do the larger panel. More comprehensive. Now here's why. For this, for Nano Air +1 supplement, we need to put some numbers here, right? The cost for Nano Air is typically $500. But if you buy it in volume, meaning lots of 10, price point comes down to $350. As long as you get at least 2 different competing compound pharmacies, and everywhere anyone lives, there are compounding pharmacies and you can get 1 or 2, right? You may not be able to get products shipped into you, but you'll get 1 or 2. All right, make them compete because you don't want to pay anything more than $50 for your supplement. All right. Now, I also want to charge for my panel. And my panel is going to run me about $250 here. It's going to run me about $500 here. I have 3 supplements. This is going to be about $150. Nanosomes is typically $1,250. If you buy it in volume, it can get as low as $1,000. What am I charging the patient? In this scenario, my charge to this patient is $1,500. On that $1,500, the first visit, all right, I'm going to net about $850. On this paradigm, where I'm charging $3,000, I'm going to net about $1,350. All right? But every subsequent visit, if I'm charging $1,500, my net goes up another $250. I'm making $1,100. Every subsequent visit, I'm making $1,850 per IV. Now, I've established value because if I'm giving Nano Air and I'm adding a supplement complementary, patients feel that that's a value. For double the price, $1,500, where's my price? $1,500 to $3,000, I'm giving triple the exosomes, 180 billion over 50, and I'm giving 3 times the supplements. Double the price, 3 times the value. Patients will see that. What about receipts? I've done a small but targeted panel to find out vitamin deficiencies, hormonal deficiencies, those type things, right? And I can choose my supplements based on the results of that panel. For this higher tier, $3,000, this is an extremely comprehensive panel. Extremely comprehensive, right? You're gonna have to go back and learn how to read all these labs. You can work with a colleague to do that, right? But in reading those labs, when you do put this cocktail together for the patient, it's targeted, it's specific, and you have the receipts to be able to do that. Now, I say establish relationship. Why do I say establish relationship? I say establish relationship because when you do this and you've shown a patient value and you've shown them that you're doing the IV for a reason, not just this standard IV bar where they just have all this stuff and you just kind of like pick based on what sounds cute or what sounds neat or what might benefit you. This is being done for a reason. We are giving you these supplements to, number one, down-regulate inflammation systemically. Number two, we're doing this to supplement issues, whether it's immune, whether it's vitamin deficiency, whether it's essential amino acids, whatever it is, right? And there's a lower tier at $1,500 and there's a higher tier at $3,000. Your net on this is $850, all right? Now we still have overhead in this. We haven't taken overhead out of this. But even if I take overhead out of this, right, we're still making a lot of money because I'm not sending anything for insurance. So I eliminate 13% on the insurance. How big a facility do I need to do IVs? I don't. How many staff do I need to do to drop an IV? I don't. Most of you can drop IVs. You don't need ancillary staff to do this. Now here comes the big question. How on earth do I market something like this? And everyone asks me this. This all sounds great, Dr. Martin. This revenue looks fabulous. If I could make $1,350 or $1,800 a patient, and I could do this quarterly, and patients are getting better, and they relate their health and their well-being to me, right? Then I'm going to have a wonderful relationship with my community because I'm getting them better. How do you market this? I'm going to make it very, very simple. There are two ways to market this. And both have to do with establishing relationship. Number one, country club. What do you have at a country club? Well, if people have enough money to join a club for $40,000 or $50,000, and they have enough money to pay golf dues and association dues and, incidentals, right? Then they have enough money to spend $3,000 a quarter to come see you for an IV. Notwithstanding the fact that this is a write-off. This is a business write-off. But what do you get at a country club despite a ton of people with disposable income? Well, if you choose the country club correctly, it will have pickleball, golf, and tennis. The three most common sports delivering you patients on a regular basis who are getting injured. The three most common sports where people need to feel good to continue to play. And the three most common sports that are causing inflammation and chronic use injuries where people don't feel great. And because they hurt everywhere, just a single needle in one or two places ain't gonna cut it. What's the second best possible? I would say something like a Lifetime. Something like a very high-end gym, like a Lifetime, where you've got a lot of, again, people with disposable income. If you're paying $300 a month to go to the gym, when it's $22 to go to Planet Fitness, you are in a different category altogether. You have disposable income, so if you wanted to biohack and spend $3,000 a quarter, you could do that. This paradigm where I am doing some type of comprehensive panel whether it's function, health, or not, to assess a patient's immune response, fasting, insulin, to assess vitamin deficiencies, to assess hormonal imbalances, to assess, clotting and maybe some other things. This separates you from the pack. It separates you from every other IV wellness clinic where you're just walking in and you're like, oh, I think I'll have that. And it means nothing. This is targeted. This is specific. Oh, goodness. I apologize. I've got to nebulize, obviously, which I'm going to plan to do tonight. My goodness. Now we're going to talk through a story. Most of you have heard me tell you about this nurse practitioner in Coeur d'Alene who I built this for, who's doing very well. I'm going to tell you a different story. I had a conversation with a doctor. It wasn't a heated conversation. It was a very emotional conversation. That doctor's about my age, and he's a neurosurgeon. Now, I don't know about all of you, but when I was in residency, neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, cardiothoracic surgeons, these folks were King Kong, right? And queens and kings of the castle. They were literally the top of the food chain. Well, it turns out that when you're at the top, it gets very, very lonely at the top. And this neurosurgeon basically had a breakdown on the phone with me. And he said, Scott, I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it anymore. I feel like I'm losing my edge. And he said, the reason I'm losing my edge is I still love doing surgery. I'm damn good at what I do. My hands are good, everything's good. He said, how old are your kids? And I said, well, my daughter's 23, my son's 20. Well, my daughter turns 23 this week. He's like, well, I've got a few years on you. He's like, my kids are a bit older. He's like, let me ask you, Scott. He said, did you see your kids a lot when your kids were growing up? And it's one of the greater, really regrets of my entire life that I almost never saw my kids growing up. I mean, I left the house when it was dark and I kissed my kids while they were asleep. And 5, 6 nights a week, I came home and I kissed my kids on the head when they were asleep again at the end of the day. I mean, I was not there. And, I thought that what I needed to do was just crush it and work my brains out and see patients all hours of the day. And, my kids would be in a better position for having done all that work. And maybe they would have, and maybe I don't know, right? But I do know that I wasn't there, and there's nothing I can do about that. But what I can do is when my kids have kids, and what I can do right now is reorient and re-engineer my life and my career such that if my kids are on spring break, I'm able to fly and go see them. If my kids do have time to come see me, I can fly them in to see me. By doing something this simple and making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month, that you're not making seeing 60 patients a day, it gives you time freedom. And time freedom is something hardly any of us have. You don't get back time with your spouse. You don't get back time with your kids. You're not going to get more of it. I still remember my kids, would run and give me a huge hug and a kiss, and the little dog would run around my feet, and I'd be just exhausted, and all I could think about was taking a nap. And I have pictures of my kids both like sleeping on my chest while I went home and napped. That is absolutely not quality time. But hell, I'd been up for 48 hours. I, got called in the middle of the night, went to the hospital, whatever. 18-hour days. I mean, I was a walking zombie most of the time. And I think it's a glorious thing that my kids loved me enough that they felt quality time was just taking a nap on my chest, no matter how wound up they were. If only that, something like this will afford you time freedom so that you can spend it with the people that you love, so that you can spend it doing things that you love, right? It'll change your world. And I can't tell you how much this has changed mine. There isn't anything more that I like now than medicine. I never wanted to be a doctor. Not once. You can ask me at any point in time if I ever wanted to be a doctor. I never wanted to be a doctor. Even when I was very good and very celebrated and very busy, I never wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be an architect. Now what do? Now I see patients. Not yet. I'm waiting for my license in Texas, but still fly back and see some folks in California, still fly back and see some folks in Las Vegas. But teaching has given me an opportunity to give back so that, God willing, colleagues like this neurosurgeon who literally cried on the phone with me last week about how he felt like his life literally had passed him by. He hadn't read a book other than a medical journal in years. Hadn't been on a date night with his wife other than maybe that she would come up to the doctor's lounge and they would have dinner at the doctor's lounge, and that was their date night. And she would sneak in wine and they'd drink it out of like solo cups. I mean, he wasn't on call. He was just exhausted. And so he met her up at, his office at the hospital. They weren't like in the doctor's lounge drinking wine out of solo cups. But irrespective, I thought it was very romantic. And how awesome of his wife to meet him wherever he was, in whatever capacity, and kind of sneak wine in just so they could enjoy a bit of romantic, time before he went back and then did 3 hours of charts. Because he's a guy who sees 100 patients a day when he's seeing follow-ups. That's an insane amount of patients. The reality is none of us are getting younger. The reality is none of us are getting paid more to do this. And now I'm about to drip on you another dose of reality. I apologize. I'm sneezing all over the place here. And Luna is aggressively chatty this evening. She's usually hunkered down and sleeping. I think I just messed with her sleep cycle. She agreed with that. Wherever you are in the country, we have a stem cell bill on the books in Florida. We have a stem cell bill on the book in Utah. There's an old stem cell book on the books in Nevada. And there's a right to try in the state of California. On the books right now this year, this is all pending. Wyoming, Alabama, Texas. And Nevada's looking at updating their stem cell bill. CBD used to be illegal everywhere. CBD is now legal in all 50 states, as long as the THC component is less than 3%. Medical marijuana is legal in 40 states in the country. At one point in time, marijuana manufacturers who were selling black market were making disgusting amounts of money. Disgusting amounts of money. But as soon as marijuana became legal and it was running across every state in the country, what happened to the revenue in marijuana? It crashed. It crashed profoundly. You've heard me make this statement before. And you've heard me use this term if you've ever seen me speak. Social proof scarcity. One of my prized possessions. If you don't know, I collect rare books. This is social proof scarcity. May not seem like much, but that is a first edition, first impression from 1897 by Bram Stoker. This is Bram Stoker's Dracula. They didn't make very many of these. They made fewer than 1,000 copies. Of the ones that survive, this is a true first impression. This is social proof scarcity. It's been weathered by time and by age, but even in its condition, this is a $30,000 book. And in 10 years, it'll be worth $40,000. And in 50 years, it'll be worth $100,000 because they're not making more of these. This is social proof scarcity. What I'm afraid to tell all of you all is that stem cells will not be social proof scarcity in the next 5 years. Wherever you are, wherever your practice is, plan on 3 people in your building and 2 people across the street offering stem cells. Because there won't be licenses for this kind of thing. There won't be limited dispensaries for this type of thing, because if a state passes the law, well, then just anybody in the state can use the product. Look at Florida. People are moving from places they've lived their whole lives to Florida to open stem cell clinics. If there's a stem cell clinic on every corner, what separates you from the herd? How do you maintain your social proof scarcity? You maintain social proof scarcity by a couple things. Number 1, being early. If you're listening to this, you're early. Number 2, education. There are a ton of folks offering stem cells. A lot of what they're offering is complete and utter bullshit. They don't know what they're using. They don't know why they're using it. They don't know how to use it. They're being told by reps what to do. They're being told by PhDs who've never practiced a day in their life how to use biologics. I'm sorry, no offense to PhDs, right? Last time I checked, a PhD doesn't carry malpractice. Last time I checked, a PhD has never written a prescription or driven a needle or treated any patient ever. So what they think about stem cells, I could care less. What's number 3? If you need to be early and you need to be educated, what is the last element that even if there's a stem cell bill passed in 40 states, just like marijuana laws, and even if there's a stem cell clinic on every corner, what's the final thing that's going to keep you busy? It's outcomes. We stress over and over and over again education. We stress over and over again being early, but we also stress research. This is why through the Institute of Regenerative Education, we have started to create these IRBs, right? So that you can participate in the process of creating the very literature that will define how these biologics are used for patients forward going for the rest of our lives and the rest of our children's lives. The outcomes that you track in your practice don't just comply with federal statutes and with experimental use. They also establish a rhythm and a specific application standard in your practice. Because if you're tracking outcomes in your office, you know what works well and you know what doesn't. All of the protocols that are in the Institute of Regenerative Education, all of those are not static protocols. Those are protocols we create with rolling observational studies. If any of you have talked to me on the phone, I will tell you the same thing. If you look at our large joint protocol and you think that you have a better way to do it, call me. Let's talk about it. And I will use your protocol on 5 of my patients. If 3 out of my 5 patients get better using your protocol than the one we have in IORE, I will call my 5 musketeers. I have 5 doctors across the country that I will call when this stuff happens. And they will select 5 patients out of their practices, and they will use the same protocol. If the majority of patients have better outcomes using your protocol than the protocol in the IORE, we will update national protocols for every provider, bar none. Medicine is meant to evolve. We plan. We lean into physicians who are innovators, who want to change, who want to discover what the best approach is, what the best applications are. We love that, and I love that. So if you're looking at protocols and you're thinking to yourself, nah, I don't know, Dr. Martin. I think this is cute, don't get me wrong, but I've been doing this for a long time and I think I know better. Great, call me. Schedule a peer-to-peer, let's talk about it. Let's vet your protocol, and if it is better, we'll hit it, and we'll have the 5 musketeers work it through. And if they vet the protocol and they agree that it's better, we'll change protocols nationally. And we will be honored to do so. Medicine should evolve. And we want it to. Because the more it evolves, the closer we get to this. And it's this, ultimately, that's going to keep you busy. And it's this, ultimately, that's going to give you this. Let me leave you with this last. Right now, in any city, in any state, there are orthopedic surgeons, and they do hip replacements. Medicare's reimbursement for hip replacement is basically the same in California as it is in Virginia and Washington State and Texas and, North Dakota. So how do you choose who is going to replace your hip? Oh, it's who's been doing it the most, who's the most educated, and who gets the best outcomes. Let me say that again. Where do you go to get a hip replacement? You get it from somebody who's done it for a long time. They were an early adopter. Somebody who's got a really good education. And somebody who gets fantastic outcomes. Last time I checked, if I have a terrible hip, am I going to see the guy with the great bedside manner? No offense. I don't care if he never talks to me. I hope I don't know what his bedside manner is. Because if I saw him once for the pre-op and I saw him in surgery, and then I saw him once in follow-up and I never had to see him again, that's awesome. I don't want to know what his bedside manner is. Because if I get to know him and we've got a great relationship, I've seen him way too many times. And I don't want that, right? I just want my hip fixed so I can go about my business. This is your social proof scarcity. How do you get it? Read around your patients, read around cases, search chat for articles. I have conversations every day with whoever my avatar is on chat, talking through paradigms, talking through protocols, trying to perfect the wheel for myself and for my own patients to make sure they get the very best. Because I'm not static. I want better than what we currently have. And I'm always pushing the envelope. I know this has been a longer video, but it was important for me to, number one, really give everyone a reality check and show everyone where things are going, right? And let everyone know that eventually we will have stem cell bills in 40 out of however many states we're going to have at that point in time. We assume Canada or whatever else. And how you maintain your autonomy, like a superlative orthopedic surgeon or podiatrist or neurosurgeon or whatever, in a field with lots of other people doing the same thing. You shouldn't be scared that states are adopting stem cell bills. What you should be is invested. And no matter what happens, if you're early, you lean into education and you lean into research so you get the best outcomes, you are your own social proof scarcity. I'm Dr. Martin. Have a very blessed day.